The splendor of expensive destinations has its appeal. But let's face it, the more expensive a place is, the more you have to adjust the length of your trip and your activities there to stretch your dollar. There's something to be said for traveling to cheap countries, where an entire meal at a local restaurant costs the same as a movie ticket back home, or where you can sleep at a nice hotel for what will only get you a hostel bed in other places. Check out our list of some of the cheaper countries in different destinations around the world and why you should consider going there. Denmark. Scandinavian countries are notorious for being the most expensive destinations in Europe, but if you have your heart set on visiting Northern Europe, there are ways to do it right and without spending a fortune. Of all the Scandinavian countries, Denmark is the cheapest, though still quite expensive when compared to other areas of Europe. To truly save money on this trip, you'll have to skip the busy summer season and probably also spring, as the pleasantly warm weather means lots of tourists and higher prices. Flights and accommodation prices, however, are as much as 40% cheaper between September and November, right after the summer crowds have gone home, but before the windy, cold weather arrives. Denmark also offers a great way to save money on food. Bakeries. Forget paying for expensive meals at your hotel or a touristy restaurant, and instead, walk into a neighborhood bakery away from the central area. Bakeries offer a great cheap option for breakfast. Wienerbrød or Danish pastries. Fluffy, flaky pastries filled with jams or custard cream. Bulgaria. For cheap prices in Europe, very few places beat Bulgaria, an unassuming eastern country that remains very much off the beaten track. In summer, tourists from neighboring countries arrive in Bulgaria to enjoy the Black Sea for incredibly low prices. But the rest of the year, the country is quiet. That means no big crowds, no noise, and no crazy high prices for accommodation, food, and entry to attractions. In fact, Bulgaria's most interesting destinations won't cost you a penny. Sofia, the country's capital, is an old city where you can see the Turk and Byzantine influence. But the real charm of the country can't be truly discovered until you step into the countryside. Here, ancient little villages sit next to imposing castles atop mountains. In Bulgaria, you can get an all-day ski lift ticket for a tenth of what you would pay anywhere else in Europe, and the hiking trails will take you up mountains as high as the Alps for free. To make the trip even cheaper, skip the summer months, when the beaches are crowded and hotels raise their prices to take advantage of the short tourist season. Late spring and early fall are great times to visit instead, especially if you're spending time outdoors. The weather is nice, the tourists are gone, or haven't arrived yet, and prices are more than affordable. Cambodia. Cambodia is best known for being home to Angkor Wat, the largest religious monument in the world. Even this world-renowned destination is incredibly affordable to visit. You can just hop on a tuk-tuk, open motorcycle taxi. To reach your destination, buy a temple ticket at the entrance of the first temple, and explore until your heart's content for just pennies. When you're ready to move on, your tuk-tuk driver will take you to the next temple and wait for you. Hiring a tuk-tuk for the entire day will cost you the equivalent of a 15-minute taxi ride in NYC. But Cambodia has much more to offer than stunning ancient temples. The capital, Phnom Penh, is filled with things to do, including beautiful French colonial architecture. Nepal. Unless you're planning a full guided trek up Mount Everest, which is definitely not a cheap venture, Nepal is incredibly cheap. Even better, you can still enjoy plenty of trekking and even climbing for pennies. Even massive trekking trips, such as an 11-day hike in Langtang Valley, will only set you back a few $100s, a quarter of what a trek to Everest Base Camp would cost. Nepal is hard to visit in the low season, as the months between mid-June and mid-September mean lots of rains, potential flooding, and sometimes dangerous landslides that block trails and make hiking impossible. In addition, the weather is misty and cloudy during these months, which means you often get poor visibility and no mountain views. Morocco. Morocco is one of those countries that can cost you a lot of money or be incredibly cheap, depending on the choices you make. For example, visiting Morocco's famous Marrakech's Bazaar can get pricey, especially if you're after hand-woven rugs or painted glass. But if you learn to haggle like your life depends on it, you'll walk away with some budget treasures. Intercity first-class train rides in Morocco will cost you about the same as you would pay for a metro ride in the West. Even better, you don't need to pay for a guide at any of Morocco's major attractions, such as the Royal Saadian's tombs or the 12th century Menara Gardens. as they're either easy to discover on your own. If you avoid peak season, November to March, you'll also find lower-priced accommodations, and you can spend plenty of time walking through places like the white and blue Rabats Aldeias Casbah neighborhood or the dusty trails on the Rif Mountains at no cost. Portugal. With good bus, tram, and train connections, it's easy to travel around Portugal without spending much. While Lisbon can be slightly more expensive, eating and entertainment everywhere else in the country is very budget-friendly. Even popular famous beach destinations, such as Camilo Beach in the Algarve, can be visited on a shoestring if you plan your trip well and don't need to sleep right on the beach. The true high season in Portugal is only 2 months long, June and July, so traveling outside those months will help you find good deals in transportation and accommodation to save even more. Winter is also a great time to visit for amazing discounts, especially if you're heading to cities. With temperatures around 15 degrees Celsius in January, Portugal is never truly cold. Most of Portugal's must-see attractions are in Lisbon and Sintra, where you'll find things like the medieval defensive Belém Tower, the Gothic Jerónimos Monastery, and the public square Praça do Comércio, surrounded by shops and cafes. These are either free to enter or cost very little. Bolivia. Bolivia is often passed on for more famous neighbors Peru and Brazil. But this country at the heart of the Andean mountain range has an impressive collection of sites to discover. Bolivia is a multi-ethnic country with 36 official indigenous languages and an ecosystem that varies from the desert llanos, plains, to the polar mountains in the western Andes. Many of Bolivia's most famous sites are free to visit, including Lake Titicaca on the border of Bolivia and Peru, the largest lake in South America, a number of pre-Columbian archaeological sites, Salt Lake Laguna Verde at the foot of a volcano, and Salar de Uyuni, the world's largest salt flat. Trekking in the Valle de la Luna is an experience to remember, and the protected area charges no entry fee. Walking through the tall stone spires and the colorful mountainsides in shades of reds, browns, and even dark violets beats almost any desert hike in the world. Uganda. Kenya and Tanzania are known around the world as the big photo African safari destinations. The Serengeti and Masai Mara reserves have the world's largest population of elephants, lions, and giraffes in the world. But safari camps aren't cheap, and both countries suffer from some civil unrest that often means tourists must join guided tours to see anything outside the city. And this means added expenses that end up making the countries less than affordable. Uganda, on the other hand, is a safe and stable country with plenty of big animals to spot, plus one very special extra. This is the ultimate destination for gorilla trekking, and the last place in the world where you can see large populations of mountain gorillas living free. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed our content and found it informative, helpful, or entertaining. We appreciate your support and feedback, and we look forward to bringing you more great videos in the future. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated on our latest uploads. And as always, feel free to leave a comment below with any suggestions, questions, or just to say hello. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.